Carl here from Metal Wani, and with me today is a gentleman who set out to pop the buckle on the Bible Belt and wound up becoming one of the greatest maestros in horror music today. He's also one of my personal favourite artists. I am stoked to be here today with Wednesday 13. Wednesday, thank you so much for your time, my friend.
Thank you for having me on Wednesday.
I know, it can rarely get better than that. So
I'm going to start telling my publicist, no, I only talk on Wednesdays. That's it.
So if my knowledge of your schedule for the last couple of months is accurate, in September you sat down with the guys to hash out new ideas for a new record entitled Necrophaze. At the beginning of December you went back into the studio almost immediately after finishing a tour, and your studio deadline was January 15th. And like you said that, you know, fans are going to love this new record. It's the ultimate horror record of all of yours. And I'm just wondering, now that March is a stone's throw away, what more can you share about the details that live behind those words?
It's actually been a lot more work added to it. So we bumped the release date, and we bumped our deadline up another month or so, just to get everything included that I wanted to do for this record. Because there's no reason to rush this record for me. I mean, again, I'm not going to, go, it's coming out in a couple of years. It's coming out later this year, but there was no need to rush and go, we just recorded it. Let's get it out right before this Cradle of Filth tour. There was no time to do the proper setup and things. And I'm doing this record totally different than any way I've ever done any promotion on a record. And I've got the label's blessing behind me, which is even better because they like my ideas, which is great, because normally I would go to someone and go, hey, I want to do this. And they go, you want to do what? So it's really cool. Like with this, but I can give you a brief description of the new album, a little bit more detailed. So basically what I've done is I've sort of, do what I always do. We try to write music that we like, and so this was not a concept record by any means, and musically, for me, it's kind of hard when we go in to write music. Like, it's like not like we go in and go, hey guys, we're going to sound like this. We want to sound like this time. We just go in as a band and put on instruments and play, and if we have a couple riffs that we wrote ahead of time, by ourselves, we'll go, hey, check out this riff, and then we'll jam on a song, and that's kind of how this record turned out. These were the songs that we created over a 3-week process together, plus it was also songs that some of us had worked on, by ourselves, so we kind of like brought some songs to the table and then made up stuff on the spot, and that's what we created in September. Went back in end of September, all of November, writing the lyrics and everything, and then we went in the studio December 5th and started on drums on it. So since December 5th, since September, I've been in kind of just writing mode and writing lyrics and writing everything. So it's been a long process, and right now we're mixing the record. It should be mixed by the end of this week, and I'm approving artwork and all that stuff. So in the next week or two, we'll be turning it into the label, and then we'll be announcing our release date and etc. But yeah, I mean, it's turned into this ultimate, like, for me, it's the ultimate Wednesday 13 horror album. It's almost like a movie when you listen to it. And I got Roy Mayorga from Stone Sour on board with it. He and I became friends over the past 6-7 months. We've known of each other, but a friend of a friend reached out and said, hey, Roy, heard you're doing a new record. Would you be interested in having some keyboards or some programming? And I had no idea. I mean, Roy was a great drummer, but I had no idea that he was into doing all that stuff. And once I went to his place and saw everything he had and told him what I was wanting to do and do an 80s inspired John Carpenter sort of rock and roll horror movie record soundtrack, and he was like, I'm on board. So he basically scored music to our music, if that makes sense.
That does make sense. And thank you for
so it's almost like, all the elements and stuff in between the songs, the atmosphere he created, he helped me create that atmosphere. I went in and said, I have this idea, and he would go, oh, what about this? And it was just kind of like, he kind of took my ideas and brought them to life, and then he also added his own take on on things I never even thought of. So it was a really cool thing to have someone else, adding on top of the music that we already had. And so I think that's what makes this record sound the way it does. And the people that I played just the rough versions for, just the look on their faces and their reaction is, this sounds like the new version of Wednesday. It still sounds like Wednesday, but it sounds like it's been Frankenstein. It's been put on the slab and pulled up and hit with lightning bolts and brought back down. It's like supercharged. So yeah, man, it's just got a ton of atmosphere, vibe to it, and it's just it's my favorite thing I've worked on, and I keep listening to it over and over, and it just puts a smile on my face. I'm not questioning it or going, I hope the fans are going to like it. I know the fans are going to love this one. Last one I didn't know. This one I know.
Amazing, man. Thank you for being so generous with the details there. I really appreciate it, and I'm stoked for it. And I was wondering, when you go into the studio, as you did, almost immediately after coming off tour, I would think that either, the juices are still flowing and, adrenaline is at its peak, or you're like at a total burnout and running on fumes. But by the sounds of it, this wasn't the case for you. This was a very creative, and it was an amazing experience for you recording this record. Were you expecting to be exhausted going into this, or did the adrenaline carry you through after coming off tour?
Well, don't get me wrong. It was definitely we went in riding not with the freshest brain or everybody having time off to relax from the whole year of touring, and we literally just came off the road. I think our last show was the 24th, and then in November, then we were in the studio on the 5th. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to decompress from that, but with me, it kind of works both ways. You can give me a little bit of time off, I'll recharge my batteries. That could be a good thing, but it could also be too much time off and I lose my stride. So it's almost kind of like if I'm in strike mode, let's just keep it going. So we were fresh from touring all year. I was like, all right, our chops are up, we're playing good. Let's not take 6 months off and record. Let's go while we're still hot, And so that kind of worked out. But at the same time, it would have been great to go in there with fresh brains and going, oh, I haven't seen you in 3 months, as opposed to, I just saw you 3 days ago. Now I got to hang out with you for another month. You know what I mean? We're all brothers, but we all want to get away from each other and do our thing, So it's just, but luckily we were able to get in there and do this record and get everything recorded right, and having our producer Michael this time from Michael from Devil Driver, the guitarist, he produced this record. We did it at his studio in California, which last year we recorded with Zeus in Connecticut on the East Coast, which we're all pretty much West Coast guys, so the traveling on that just didn't work out this time. So and plus working with Roy here in Cali, it was just a lot of circumstances we couldn't work with Zeus this time, and the results we got from Mike was amazing. It's different than what we did with Zeus, and I think it's exactly what we needed to take us to the next level of the Wednesday 13 saga. Amazing,
man. And I remember I watched an interview with yourself, and you were saying that you've got two covers, two album covers in mind for this, and you said that you like CDs and vinyl, and your fans appreciate the packaging. And because I even remember my first introduction to you was when I bought the Murderdolls, Beyond the Valley of the Murderdolls, as a kid, and I remember sitting in my room with the record spinning and flicking through the booklet and marrying the two together. And I was wondering.
That's great. Well, that's how it was for me. That's how I look at records. I'm glad that you were able. A lot of kids don't do that anymore. Now it's all digital, and they never even see that artwork, which is such a bummer.
That's exactly it. So that's what I was curious about, because I was wondering, as you said, in today's, in a digital age where kids are discovering you, they don't necessarily get that hard copy experience to conflate the two. And obviously they take other avenues such as social media. But I was wondering, have you found any sort of challenge in trying to communicate the image as well as the audio as one, or has the digital era not influenced you in that way?
I think it's challenging more so for maybe a band like I don't know, let's say Mastodon, for something like that. image band. I love that band, but I'm not saying anything.
Yeah,
But they're a killer band, so very different than what we do. But but they have killer artwork, and their packaging and stuff is great. So, but they're also not like a visual band. But I think a lot of their fans have learned that their artwork, and so I find a lot of their fans really buy into their art. So it can be done on a band that's not like an image-based band like us. They are. Mastodon is an album cover based band, and their music completes that thing. So it's kind of like one of those things. So, but again, to answer your question, there's no way to really make a kid do what you said you did with Murderdolls. Buy it, go home, listen to it, put it on, spin it, read every lyric, look at the pictures. Imagine what we were doing recording it. Imagine what it would be like if you saw it live. It seems like that whole thing's gone for the ages these days. I don't know. Maybe I'm just an older dude, but I just don't see people doing that anymore. But saying that, I still don't care. I'm still going to do it the way I've always done it. I'm going to do the package. Like there's two different. The vinyl has a completely different artwork than the CD, and the stuff that's on the vinyl will not be on the CD whatsoever. It's basically I couldn't decide between the two styles I wanted to go for, so I said, "Fuck it, I'm going to do both."
I love it, man.
So vinyl got the version I wanted for that, and the CD got the version I wanted for that, and it all ties together. It's all themed together, but it's just two different styles, and but yet it fits what we do, and if you don't listen to the album and listen or look at the artwork, I still think people are going to dig the record, but. If you are into collecting and looking at like vinyl with like just killer artwork, I'm blown away by it. Like I just really saw the proofs of the vinyl last night, and I was looking at it going, "Whoa, there's so much color in this. It hurt my eyes." It's like it's amazing. It's like literally like you just walk into a Scooby-Doo cartoon. It's really cool, and the CD artwork is totally different. And so yeah, it's great. I was able to achieve both of those things. It fits the theme of the record, and yeah, man, I'm excited. So we're just taking our time with it. It's coming out later this year. We'll be announcing a big announcement about it. What track listing, who's on it. We have some special guests on it. I never had guests on my records before, but this time we have like 5.
Wow.
So yeah, it's a cool record, man. It's really something that me and my guitarist were talking about it yesterday. It's something that we both can listen to almost as a fan and step out of the band for a second, because it's just got a cool atmosphere to it.
Amazing, man, and I'm looking forward to it as well, because I still buy the hard copy of your records for that reason. I just enjoy that experience, especially with your stuff.
Oh man, you wait, you see the package like this. I'm just talking about this. The standard packaging is going to be amazing. I've already seen what we're doing with the deluxe and everything, and when I heard what we're able to do, like it literally, like I had to look around the room, like, are you lying to me? Can we actually really make this? So. As far as it comes to, like, there's going to be so many different versions of this, and there's a deluxe version we're working on that just, it blew my mind that they were actually going, yeah, we can do this. I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to let me do this? So all I can say is things are good, and I'm taking my time to make this good. If I rushed it, you're not going to get all the good stuff. But it's also not going to be a long... It'll be a wait for the record because it's coming out later this year, but there's a lot of things in between it we're doing, like teasers and movie trailer type things, and like it's going to be a different setup than most bands. You're not going to hear me going just a video of like I did last time. Oh, I recorded in this studio and blah blah blah. It's going to be more set up like the way a movie is coming. The way like everyone anticipated Star Wars. Like, oh, here's the new trailer. Fuck, I gotta see it. Oh, here's a new one. Oh, it's here. That's the anticipation I want to build on this.
Can't wait, man. Can't wait. And, just before I get into my last couple of questions for you, just as a long-time fan who never had the pleasure of seeing the Murderdolls, I know you were saying you were talking to Joey and that you guys said, given this, circumstances provided, you'd like to do it again. I was just wondering, I'd kick myself if I left this phone call and not asked you, is there a likelihood of that happening again?
Again, it's probably right where the last thing you read me saying, talking about it. It's still right where it is. Nothing's went back or forward from my last meeting with Joey. Last year, we had to switch out a tour bus in Iowa, and ironically, we were 10, 15 minutes from his house, had the day off, got in touch, went by, saw him for the first time in person in years, and we hung out and reconnected, and just to know that we were on a friend level was all I cared about, and music was secondary, and we of course we talked about that, and we both just expressed that we had a blast doing that, reminisced of the old times. Our original drummer Ben had just passed away, like just a week or two before that. So we were just talking and telling stories about him, and it was a good time, And then we both, and it kind of ended with, "Hey man, it's great. We're both still alive. We did a lot of cool stuff, and if we want to do it again, when the time's right, we'll do it." And it was kind of a hug and walk off, and that was it. And we both have expressed if there's time to do it, we're going to do it. And but I don't think it'll ever be a full-time thing. And I use this comparison, but I'm not comparing us to a band like this because we're nowhere. But like for example, the Misfits. When I heard they got back together, that blew my mind. I never thought I would see that again. And then to see the Misfits in a giant arena was just such an ultimate punk rock fuck you to everybody. I loved it. But getting back to what I'm saying about the Misfits, what was cool about it is they didn't say, "Hey, it's Glenn, Jerry, and Doyle back, and we're doing a new album, and we're doing a full tour." And they didn't do that. They said, "We're doing one show." Boom. Everybody was like, "What? This is a joke?" They almost like it was too good to be true, and then they did a show. And they did it. Then they did another show, and then they did another, and they've spaced it out, and they've kept the fans excited. They know they may throw another one out here or there, and everybody heard about that one that missed that one, wants to go to it. I want to take that aspect of it. I love the way they did that. I don't see any need for us to go, "Hey, Joey, we're back together. Let's do a new record." Because you just said it. You never saw us. No one ever saw us. We didn't tour. We have 2 records out in a 10-year, 11-year gap, and we did 2 years of touring in those 10 years. Mm-hmm. So if you saw us, it's almost what I call us, we're like Bigfoot. Did you see us? Did you not see us? Are we real? Did we exist? There's evidence somewhere, but it's almost like we're a Bigfoot band. So my whole theory on it was, if we do something again, why not just play some shows and let people see us? Because they never did. And if we have a great time from that point, and if we want to make new music, we'll do it then. But no one even heard the first 2 albums, so let's go out and do that first, and have fun with that, and take it from there. So there's no plans on the table, but if I had my perfect way of doing it, it would be in that style.
Oh, cool, man. Well, thank you for entertaining the question, and I lived and breathed those first 2 albums. But
Dude, I do too. That's where everyone knows me from. That first album was a lot of my old songs that were just done in such a Ed Wood type production manner where it was just, "Oh, that's good enough." Like that first Frankenstein Drag Queen album was recorded in a day, and then we used a lot of that material on Murderdolls and spent 5 months recording it. Sure. So it was cool to hear those songs and stuff, and then it introduced the world to me, and luckily I've been able to do what I do and continue as a solo artist because people knew Murderdolls, and then they investigated my history and found Frankenstein Drag Queens, and they're like, "Oh, cool, this guy's been around for a while. He just didn't come out to be a Slipknot friend for 5 seconds and disappear." Because that's what everyone wanted to do with the side projects. They wanted to kill Stone Sour, and they wanted to kill Murderdolls, and then they realized we were good bands.
I live your soul material, man, as well. I love that stuff. Transylvania 90201 was still one of my favorite records.
And because of that Murderdolls record, and I was able to do that. Mm-hmm. Had I had never released anything prior to Murderdolls, and say people had just heard of Wednesday 13 on that record, I don't think I could have got a solo deal. I think I would still be trying and playing little gigs like I did back in the day. But luckily, I had been doing my work and putting records out before Murderdolls, so share history prior to that. You know, I had records out in Europe that I didn't even know about. I'm like, oh wow, your record's out in Russia? Cool. Where's that at?
Man, wow.
Get a map.
Anyway, sorry, I could talk to you all day about that stuff, man. I've just got a couple of questions left for you, and one of them, I know you get a lot. I'd love to talk a little about the horror aesthetic that's obviously affiliated with you, because I caught you live for the first time there a couple of years ago, and you know there were elements of classic Universal horrors, there were elements of the Hammer stuff that came later, and even some like Grand Guignol inspired stuff. And the commonalities in the DNA of the small few I've listed is that they're obviously considered, you know, timeless classics. And I'm curious about whether there has been any, you know, more contemporary horror pieces that you consider notable that you've drawn inspiration from.
There's a lot of, I mean, for me, I'm a fan of the horror in general, just because as a kid, you know, growing up watching the Monsters and Addams Family, and then watching the old classics, and then my parents going to bed in the early 80s watching Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street when they were like brand new movies. You know, I just appreciated all these different styles. So someone asked me a question, what's your favorite horror movie? I go, well, what genre? You know, what's your favorite album? Well, I don't know how to tell you. I like this one from this era, and this is my favorite album of the 80s, you know. So, for me, when I draw inspiration, like for this album, for example, you know, I really went back to the old 80s, just the retro look of everything, and just the vibe, because I remember being alive during that time. It was the satanic panic of heavy metal. Everybody thought every metal band was a devil worshiping band, especially in the Bible Belt where I lived. And horror movies were looked upon as, and Freddy Krueger was not a household name, and he was not funny at first. He was exactly what he was. He was a burnt child molester. They got in your dreams, and he was terrifying. And then they by 3 and 4, he was, you know, he's a household name, and everyone's, oh, it's Freddy Krueger, ho ho ho, you know. So in my earlier days, I drew inspiration from more of the comedic kind of tongue-in-cheek, campy stuff like Beetlejuice and that funny side of maybe Freddy and things like that. And I always tried to put a sense of humor, and there's still a sense of humor in what I do. But with this record is definitely less campy. It's a little more dark. I don't want to say drama or by any means, because it sounds like I'm being an adult. But no, it's just got more of a scary vibe to it. I won't say a slasher film. It's more of a I don't know. It's just the campiness is there, but it's got a little bit, but it's got style to it. It's not just, oh, how many plays on words can I do? And you know, I was clever. I tried to be clever with it, with everything, and I think I've put together this ultimate record. But I draw influences now, you know, instead of from movies, I watch a lot of true crime stuff, which just blows my mind, you know. Like, there's a show called Forensic Files. It's always on my TV that I just constantly watch, and it's just, you know, these horrible stories of these murders that just your next door neighbor committed, you know. And so I just found it even more horrifying to know that, yeah, there's a Freddy and a Jason and a Freddy Krueger that was created in Paramount Studios here in Hollywood or whatever, but to know that there's a Ted Bundy and there's a Richard Ramirez that works at McDonald's and, you know, sits all day and makes hamburgers and thinks about how he's going to go out later that night and kill people. That's terrifying.
Yeah.
You know, and so I've just really kind of delved into a little more of real horror and just getting into the mindset of just some of these despicable people that had thoughts, and I don't know, I'm just kind of drawn to that. I guess I still love the horror and the films and things like that, but I guess I'm more inspired now lyrically when I write. It's kind of more from a real point of view, so maybe that's where some of the campiness kind of disappears. But you know, like I said, there's nothing scarier than knowing that your next door neighbor could be, you know, a guy could be like Henry Lee Lucas and murdered over 100 people.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I think that's, you know, I was watching. There's a court case going going on right now, the Golden State Killer. They finally found this guy from over 40 years of tracing him, and everybody in the neighborhood is like, I went to the grocery store with this guy for 40 years, and he's murdered and raped, and that's creepy.
Yeah, of course, man. And
you know, you're shopping groceries with Michael Myers, pretty much.
Oh man, my final question for you today, and thank you so much for your time, is when it comes to contemporary horror film culture, it's interesting to me to see what's happening to the monster, and by that I mean this. While it's of course not the case in every modern horror, it feels, whether it be a vampire, the werewolf, zombies, the monster is kind of becoming the prerogative of the teenager, and your Twilights, your Warm Bodies, instead of your Boris Karloff's Frankenstein, Christopher Lee's Dracula. We have a much more sanitized kind of Robert Pattinson, Taylor Lautner kind of thing going on. So I was wondering,
right,
how do you think these kind of films fit into horror and its legacy, or do they even?
Oh, definitely. I mean, what scares you scares you. So people go, oh my God, I'm terrified of clowns. And you go, well, why? They're meant to make people laugh, but yet they're terrifying. So I think it's just in the eye of whoever sees it what's horrifying. So, so I think horror is just really, there's no limit to it. It's kind of like what makes you scared. Like someone else could see 5 roaches go across the floor, and I may be like, cool. And then 8 people are screaming for their lives, I hate bugs. You know what I mean? So horror, that's what's great about it. It's just kind of like when everyone's a little furious. So I love, there's room for everything, and whether it's just your, mindless slasher films, or watching The Shining and understanding what's happening to Jack Torrance, and I love, horror is just all over the map, and I don't think I have a favorite kind. And again, I'm not sure if I'm answering your question correctly, but I like it all, and I somehow am a product of all of that.
Fantastic, man. Fantastic. Well, thank you, Wednesday. I'll let you go do your thing, my friend. I hope to chat to you again soon.
Awesome, man. Thank you for your time. Talk soon.
Take it easy.